New year, new face. France's youngest ever president, naming the country's youngest ever prime minister. We'll ask why Emmanuel Macron chose to replace Élisabeth Borne with Gabriel Attal, and we'll chart the meteoric rise of a 34-year-old Parisian who's already enjoyed stints as city councillor, party spokesperson, budget minister, government spokesperson, most recently education minister. Of course, it's France, and with so much power concentrated inside the gates of the presidential palace, the title of prime minister doesn't carry the same clout as perhaps elsewhere in Europe. With a minority government in parliament and polling in the doldrums, how much will the term-limited Macron micromanage the most charismatic head of government France has seen in a long while? First test coming up with a compelling narrative that can counter the far right, where Marine Le Pen's got an even younger party leader, Jordan Bardella, 28, who for now tops all polls for next June's European elections. For a Macron who sometimes seemed to want to lay claim to the title of President of Europe, a new high for the far right would certainly not be a great look come the month of June. Today in the France 24 debate, we're asking how much of a reboot, and is Gabriel Attal a potential successor? With us, Mireille Clapeau, Member of Parliament for Emmanuel Macron's Renaissance Party, who is in her home district this Tuesday. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
With us as well, Léa Chambourcel, host of the French politics podcast Popol, author of More Women in Politics. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
Welcome back as well to Gil Mahaley, editor-in-chief of the news magazine Causeur.
Good evening.
And with us, political strategist Philippe Moreau-Chevrolet, president of MCBG Consulting.
Hey, good night.
Thanks. Good. Your reactions on the hashtag F24debate. Youngest prime minister, first openly gay prime minister, a former socialist with policies like the ban on the Muslim abaya in schools that now please the right. Gabriel Attal ticking a lot of boxes. Oliver Farry has more on a man on the move who in his rise has never held the same portfolio for more than 2 years at a time.
At 34 years old, Gabriel Attal steps into the hot seat as Prime Minister. With a 41% approval rate, he polls better than most French politicians and emits an air of a diligent pupil.
He's young, for sure. He'll go a long way.
It looks as if he knows what he's doing, even if I personally don't share his politics.
He's a good communicator, for sure.
He will now head up the government, a role that some pupils mistakenly conferred on him on a recent school visit.
Moi, on vous a expliqué un peu qui je suis. Non, pas le Premier ministre.
It was a good premonition for the ambitious young technocrat. When named Education Minister 5 months ago, he was keen to present a steely exterior.
There comes a time when tolerance and indulgence have their limits. We're done with not making a fuss about this.
Gabriel Attal has shown himself to be a canny communicator, both in the field and in leading educational reforms.
Sur la question de l'abaya, une revalorisation pour l'ensemble des enseignants, une tenue scolaire unique, la lutte contre le harcèlement scolaire.
His closeness to the president has earned him the moniker Baby Macron.
Le ministre va vous répondre.
His rise has been a meteoric one. A member of parliament at 28, junior minister at 29, then government spokesman and minister. Attal has been regularly entrusted with putting the government's message out on TV appearances. He started off on the left of French politics, but in 2016 he was one of the first to join Emmanuel Macron's new party.
I think Macron's strength will be to bring together people who might be from different parties but who agree on what matters most.
He takes over from Élisabeth Borne and becomes the youngest prime minister of France's Fifth Republic.
Mireille Clapeau, talk us through what's happened in the last days. We had Emmanuel Macron giving his wishes to the nation, the annual address that's on New Year's Eve. At the time, there was talk, perhaps, of some kind of a government shakeup. And then things seem to happen quite fast. The prime minister resigns, and then there's more of a wait before the confirmation that it is indeed Attal. What's going on?
First of all, I would like to remind that Élisabeth Borne was a very good prime minister. I was confident that she could have worked more for our republic, but she did a lot. It was not easy. And certainly after the end of December, where there were some difficulties with the law for immigration, certainly President Emmanuel Macron wanted to start a new year 2024, with new faces, new people. And he asked Élisabeth Borne to resign. And then it took several hours to get the name of the new prime minister, which is known now Gabriel Attal. And now we are waiting for the list of the ministers. I have to say that it's not so usual. Usually we have at the same time, in 1 hour at the maximum, there is the resign of the prime minister, the designation of the new one, and the list of the new ministers. So certainly there is a will of Emmanuel Macron to show that he is able to start on new bases. There will be a continuity in the project, but it's true that the way it's going, it's not usual in the Fifth Republic.
Yeah, Mireille Clapeau, the French are politics junkies, and yet the three preceding prime ministers were unknown. Basically unknown before they were named. This time it's not the case. Gabriel Attal is someone who's familiar to the public. Why is Emmanuel Macron choosing someone who's openly more political?
I think that this second term is different from the first one, especially because the majority at the parliament is not an absolute majority, it's a relative one. We were confident in June 2022 that we would be able to build a majority, to build a coalition bill of law per bill of law. It was partly right because we were able to pass more than 50 laws. But we have to admit that it's a hard fight, and I think that in this year there will be some election for the European members of Parliament. We have to start a new way of working, and certainly we have to be more in phase with the needs, with what people, French citizens, are awaiting. We have to convince them, and certainly it's more the time now for professional political communication, where we know that Gabriel Attal is very strong at.
Right. So the need for a reboot, the need for more professional communication. 24 hours ago at this time, Philippe Moreau-Chevrolet, you were commenting with us in real time as the news was dropping. And you were saying Emmanuel Macron's not a guy who likes to be upstaged. Is this a gamble?
That's the first time that he really acts under pressure with a significant choice. Usually, he doesn't want to beg to the public demand. He doesn't want to respond to the public demand.
You were saying he doesn't like it when his number two might get more of the light than he does.
Yes, Gabriel Attal has many good points. Is someone who's he's got the trust of the head of state because he's been loyal to him from the beginning. He is also close to Brigitte Macron, to Mrs. Macron, to the lady in charge, because he's been handling the education sector quite according to what she wants.
And she matters that much. She
matters a lot in the education department. So he gained the trust of both of them. And
so she has a say on who's named prime minister.
It's better to be in a good
in her good books.
Good books, yes, of course. He's close to the two of them, and he knows how to operate, how to navigate in the Macronist camp. And the other thing that is good about him is coming from the left. He's openly gay, so he's modern. He's a liberal in a way. But on the same time, you know, le en même temps, that's the big Macron.
That was his 2017 campaign
he brings
mantra.
Some fresh air. That's
a bit from the left, a bit from the right.
It makes you think that we are back 2017. 2017, because he's fresh, he's both liberal and conservative, a mix of the two. He's openly gay and is a young guy coming from the left, but at the same time, is saying things that, you know, the far right could say. And he is the most popular minister amongst the far right voters. That's something that is quite unique in this government. It's an uncommon mix. And the government and Emmanuel Macron needed this guy in order to do one thing: winning or not losing too much the European elections coming up in June. That's the main task he has.
So a guy who comes from the left but is popular with those who vote for the far right. What does that tell you, Gil Meili?
That it's one of those very rare cases when we see someone who is a natural political talent. We don't know why he's so popular, because there's nothing special about him. He never said anything particularly smart, but probably he says what people want to hear at the time that they want to hear, in the way that they wanted to hear this. And, you know, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. He's not only a technocrat, he's in politics in 2014. He was elected in the municipality near Paris. He then made his way to the Macronie at the beginning. And there were many people at the time that wanted to move forward, and we know that it was a big failure. Macron said that he's going to open to talent, to social, to civil society, and we're going to see a fireworks of talent. It was a freak show. Those who made a career was those who came either from a party in the right or party, or those who came with
at the end of the day, professional politicians.
The marcheurs didn't succeed. He's one of those who were not really established before, and he showed that he has this gift, this something which is no one can define. But, you know, when he says things, people think it's wonderful, and someone else says the same thing. People are mocking him and saying he's stupid, and, you know, Teflon, it's called Teflon. Nothing sticks to him, only good things sticks to him. And Macron has this intelligence not to go against it, even if you don't understand why it works. It's like Macron. Why did Macron succeed? In 2014, 2015, 2016, very often he was ridiculous.
There was a buzz around him, though.
There was a buzz. There was something there that was way beyond anything we can describe as talent or intelligence. Because the first time he was elected to anything was to be the president of France. It's not as if he did many things before. But there was a miracle. There was something that happened between him and public opinion.
So
And it's the second time that we see such a phenomenon.
So two characters with a lot of charisma, whether you like them or not, Léa Chamboncel. Is that a recipe for sparks? We saw that French President François Mitterrand, for instance, was notorious in undermining Michel Rocard when he was prime minister.
Yeah, there is definitely a risk. And this is also why I get quite confused when it comes to trying to analyze Macron's strategical political choices. And for that sake, I'm quite surprised that he actually decided to appoint Gabriel Attal. It is true that he has a sort of sympathy, especially when it comes to the member of the parliament. So I was talking this afternoon with a former member of the parliament that was telling me that beforehand, when he was coming around to he was the spokesperson of the government, so he was obviously dealing a lot with the majority, and he's known for being extremely friendly and very diplomatic, and
how about the education ministry? That's known traditionally as a graveyard for political careers.
Exactly, but he stayed there only for 6 months, even though he did a lot of things. And as you were saying before, it was extremely conservative.
He said a lot of things.
It was extremely conservative, etc. So indeed, we could think that Macron was trying to make his left a bit harder, in the sense that Gabriel Attal says that it comes from the left, even though he actually pushed for very conservative reform, that he didn't do anything against the immigration bill, etc., etc. So we obviously are not surprised that he's one of the most popular minister among the far right.
He's talked up issues like the banning the abaya in schools.
Exactly. I mean, and
doing test runs on having school uniforms, which is something that hadn't existed before.
2023 school uniform is very surprising and extremely conservative when it comes to this. So
it's populist.
Yeah, exactly, and populist for that sake. So it's interesting, and I'm quite surprised. The only reason I can see, if I were Emmanuel Macron, which I'm definitely not, as you can tell, but I would probably appoint Gabriel Attal just because he's too ambitious, and also because Gabriel Attal is facing a political situation that is a catastrophe. I mean, it's a terrible situation at the parliament because obviously the majority is extremely relative. Also, after the immigration bill, it's even worse now. He has to be dealing with the right. He has to be dealing with like the upcoming elections. Also at the government, it's quite complicated. There is like a lot of ministers that hate him as Darmanin. They have a lot of friction between them. So the only reason I can see as a strategical decision from Macron is that he wants him to fail and to make sure that he won't have any shadow after that.
All right, Mireille Clapeau, I'm sure you disagree, but let me ask you about relations with Parliament, since, as Leah was saying, there's no outright majority. Back in 2022, when the results came in, Emmanuel Macron pledged that he would work across the aisle. Instead, what we've seen the last 20 months is a lot of bills rammed through by decree. Can Gabriel Attal change the dynamic where you are in Parliament?
Well, I hope so. I am myself from a party from the left wing of the ruling party, En Commun. I have the impression that members of parliament are not enough involved in decision of the government and decision of Emmanuel Macron. Of course, I'm supporting President Emmanuel Macron, but I would like to have a comeback to the spirit of the institutions of the Fifth.
So what can Attal do concretely to be able to get compromises and legislation that's passed through votes in Parliament instead of decrees?
First of all, I have to mention that the budgets, the finance law, have to be passed through this decrees, what we call the 49.3, because there is no other solution. When you don't have a majority, you have to avoid the blackout, and you have to pass a budget through decrees. But for the law about pensions, for example, we could have avoided, and I hope that this talent that Gabriel Attal has, this natural diplomacy, this natural friendship will be used to negotiate very early with the ruling party, and there are several components of the ruling party, and with the opposition, of course, not far right and far left, but I think that he will have to be more diplomatic and to collaborate in another way, in the most efficient way with us.
A different tone. Let me just ask you for our international audience here, Mireille Clapeau. This is a man educated within the same two zip codes of the left bank of Paris. He went to this very exclusive private school. Then he went to a law school in the 6th arrondissement before attending the elite Sciences Po Political Science Institute. He's been on this track to power ever since, you could argue, he was a teenager. Does that make him out of touch?
The base of our project of Emmanuel Macron is to consider not from where you come, but where you are going. And I myself have a completely different education, because I was born in a small village in a rural area, and I only was in public schools. And that makes no difference. We have to consider the future and not the past. And for example, Élisabeth Borne is a very nice lady, as I mentioned, and she's 60 years old, and he's younger, and she's a woman, he's a man, but that's a collective spirit that we have, and we shouldn't insist too much on his past, because it has no influence. he will do. I'm confident he will do the best for the general interest of French citizens.
And that he's not out of touch. You mentioned at the outset of our conversation, Élisabeth Borne, in 20 months, she will have rammed through unpopular pension and immigration reform bills. Earlier at the handover ceremony, the now former Prime Minister, speaking to her experiences, France is the only second female Prime Minister.
I have never shied away from a reform. I have carried out the projects that I felt were right and necessary for a country. I held firm to the President's vision. Today I feel humbled. I am aware of all that remains to be accomplished. I know what is at stake before us, and we have to pull together in response.
Is that a slight dig, Léa Chamboncel, into how much the glass ceiling has been broken?
There again, I mean, when Élisabeth
How do you interpret the words of Élisabeth Borne there?
Very common. I mean, there's nothing revolutionary in what she's saying. She's just saying that there's more work to be done. She must be a bit disappointed, obviously, because what she went through is quite harsh. You know, she was appointed in a very difficult situation. She had to go through with the bill on the pensions, and then she had to go through numerous of 49.3, and also she had to
Article 49.3 is when you transfer voting on a bill into a vote of confidence. So basically it's
Exactly. So she had to deal with that, which was very, very tough. And also she had to deal with the immigration bill. And after that, they were saying to her, well, basically, thank you for your service, you know, you're done. And so obviously her reaction is pretty normal. She's probably a bit disappointed, and she probably believes that there is a lot more to do. But what's interesting also, and what maybe Macron can be very confident on one thing when it comes to appointing Gabriel Attal, is that Gabriel Attal has a perfect understanding of the French Parliament. When it he used to be the conseiller parlementaire, parliamentary advisor to Marisol Touraine during 5 years. So he was there at the Parliament, you know, dealing with all the groups, the majority, etc., on the former government, the socialist government. So he has a perfect understanding of that. So he knows how to talk to members of the parliament. He knows how the bills are precisely passed. He knows probably the internal reglement of the National Assembly by heart. So it shows that perhaps Macron's willing is to give more power, which I doubt in the end, but we'll see, to the parliament. And maybe Macron has understood that he can't overcome the parliament. He still has 3 years and a half to go through, and he can't be overcoming the parliament for every bill. It's not sustainable.
But as Gil Mahaley was saying earlier, first there's a battle coming up in June.
Yep.
His nomination seen by some pundits as this confrontation of young protégés ahead of European elections. Marine Le Pen's ticket topper, Jordan Bardella, was 26 when he was handpicked to head the National Rally Party. Same as in last time around in 2019, polls have the far right tops going into those European elections, and even by a wider margin if the election were held tomorrow, where we see the graph Philippe Moreau-Chevrolet. So it's not a great look at the European level.
No, the Gabriel Attal is one of the very, very few persons that could handle a debate against Jordan Bardella.
So why not put him as head of the list for the European elections in that case?
Because I guess he needed a prime minister and he didn't have many choices. And he's the best one for this scenario. I think he will be the true head of campaign in these European elections. He's the true poster boy of the campaign, at least. And he needed some new, fresh blood. I mean, obviously Macron's side is very weakened by the pension reform debate. We have like 60 frondeurs, as we call them, people from the majority that don't vote systematically with the majority, backbenchers. And this is a huge problem. Maybe Gabriel Attal has the experience to help him in that department. He's not really a political champion. I mean, he doesn't have any experience in the leading of people, politically speaking. He has maybe a technical experience, but not really a political one. So he won't replace what was missing in Élisabeth Borne, which was the talent for building coalitions, the ability to weigh in political decisions in the parliament in order to compose majorities. I'm not too sure that he would succeed in that. I think it's still a problem lingering, but at least he can reasonably lose the European elections by a smaller margin. Maybe.
Do you see it, Gil Mihaly, as ordinary citizens will be comparing Gabriel Attal with Jordan Bardella, this 28-year-old ahead of the National Rally's ticket for the European elections?
I think Macron knows that people vote for the leader. In 2017, Macron's party had the majority, even though most of the people that were elected were unknown, including Gabriel Attal himself. They voted for Macron 6 weeks after they voted for Macron for the presidential elections. So, if
this is different, though, European elections.
It's exactly the same thing. If Gabriel Attal will be able, by magic, by the magic that Macron believes he has in his hands, transform the élan, the atmosphere, make something positive, people will vote for the Macron object, whoever the names on the list are, whomever the name of the list are. Doesn't matter. Nobody cares about the elections for the European Parliament. Very often people don't know who are the people. They give it's a way to say something to the president. So if the president, through Gabriel Attal, will create a positive atmosphere,
he can narrow that gap.
Then there will be dividends in the next election. I think he hopes that this is what will happen.
Just a quick word on this. Philippe Moreau-Chevrolet, the far-right electorate today, it's used to be the working-class electorate that used to vote left-wing in a lot of cases before. What message can Gabriel Attal effectively bring to them?
I talk like you. I think like you. I may be coming from the left. I may be gay, but I'm still like you, more like you than anyone else in my majority. So you can listen to me, and it's efficient. The proof is in eating the pudding, as you said. The polls gives that numbers, higher numbers for Gabriel Attal in the government from the right-wing voters, far right-wing voters, than anyone else. So he is successful in that department, and I think
even though, as we were saying earlier, he was born with a silver spoon in his mouth.
Sure he is, but look at Marine Le Pen. She's born with several silver spoons. I mean, with a castle in the outskirts of Paris. So we are talking about the French elite, and the election is still amongst the French elite. That's the truth about it.
So before Attal's appointment...
Jordan Bardella may be different, just maybe an exception.
He's more of an exception. Before Attal's appointment on Monday, the head of the socialists list for those upcoming European elections qualified the importance of this event.
Le gouvernement détermine et conduit la politique de la nation, c'est écrit dans la Constitution.
Yes, it is written in the Constitution, but in practice, you and I know this is not the case. The President of the Republic directs, determines, and defines down to the detail the policies that lead in France. And that is indeed the problem. So we have a Constitution, and we should respect it. And we should stop seeing the ministers and prime ministers as collaborators. The President should preside, and the government should govern.
Et que le gouvernement gouverne.
Raphael Glucksmann, who went on to say that, I'll give you a scoop, the name of the new Prime Minister is going to be Emmanuel Macron, the name of the new Education Minister is going to be Emmanuel Macron, the name of the new Foreign Secretary is going to be Emmanuel Macron. Is he correct with hindsight now that it is Gabriel Attal?
I believe he is, unfortunately, because Emmanuel Macron, he's known for, just like thinking on his own, taking the decision he wants, and sometimes he even takes a decision without letting know his ministers.
But will he act the same with a more political PM than he will with his predecessors?
Why would it change? I mean, it's been on like that for like 5 years, so I hardly see why he would make a difference, especially if it's with someone that is extremely loyal to him. We need to remind that Gabriel Attal says often that he owes everything to Emmanuel Macron. So he's extremely loyal. I think he will be just implementing the politics of the president, whereas the prime minister is the thinking head of the government. So also, like most of the political journalists, as I am, were discussing it and also talking about the entire government that will be nominated soon. It's likely, and it's almost obvious that Macron will, appoint the people himself, and he won't be leaving Gabriel Attal making his choices. So I don't think things will change.
Nothing will change.
But Macron could find himself with a Macron, just like Hollande he had every confidence in Macron, and vice versa, until a moment where there was no confidence. He took a risk with Gabriel Attal. I think he thinks that he can manage the risk because he appointed non-charismatic prime ministers before. Macron doesn't like people who are equal. He's working with subordinates only. And you see, even in his majority, there are no talents. There are only mediocre people who are executing. He had the only big challenge was François Bayrou. And since Macron is very lucky, François Macron exploded on a political mine 3 weeks after he was appointed, because I can't see how Macron can.
François Bayrou is from another centrist party and who has a
and he has power. He's not a creature.
Corruption trial.
He's not a creature of Macron. Macron doesn't work with people who are not his creatures. He can't work with someone he didn't create. But Hollande created Macron, and we know how it ended.
Mireille Clapeau.
Yes. Do you want me to comment?
Yes, please.
Explanations. Well, Emmanuel Macron is certainly not a perfect man, but he was very skilled at becoming president by convincing a majority of French people and giving again the taste for politics. And I'm sure that now that he has maybe I will not use the word creature, but somebody he trusts fully, Gabriel Attal. So now I think he will start again with convincing French people that he's able to embark people to convince them.
Yeah, but the question is he going to stay out of micromanaging what happens in government? You heard Raphael Glucksmann's words there, the head of the socialist list, saying that the problem isn't, in fact, he says it's not even Macron the problem. The problem is that the executive under the Fifth Republic has a lot of power, and so you micromanage because the temptation is always there.
Yes, in a way, it's true that Emmanuel Macron has a trend to micromanagement. But I noticed when Gabriel Attal was named as Minister for Education, that we could almost have this situation where Emmanuel Macron and maybe his wife would be the Minister of Education. But he gave some main trends, and Gabriel Attal was intelligent enough to take this advice and this direction and to use them and to appropriate them and to put his own mark. For example, with the abaya that was banned from schools. For example, with authority, he used a lot the word of authorities because French citizens and French parents want the comeback of authority in schools. So he was acting the proper way to get the confidence of the president. And I'm sure that as a prime minister, he will use the same technique to take the words on the direction of President Macron and then to apply them his own way, and especially by negotiating with the parliament.
For Macron, it's all about a second win to his second and last term as president. We can show you images of him on Monday, touting the virtues of 30 minutes of exercise a day. This to mark 200 days to go till Paris hosts the Olympics. He has boxing gloves there, and you see the sandbag behind him. Macron, in his New Year's address to the nation, pledged that 2024 would be the year of what he calls civic rearmament.
Continue acting in the interest of the nation. We are determined to act for the schools, for childhood, and for education in order to re-establish the level of our students, the authority of our professors, and the strength of our secular and republican teaching. After economic renewal, state renewal, and renewal of our public services, we should now undertake a civic renewal.
Philippe Moreau-Chevrolet, you talked earlier about Emmanuel Macron's, traditional recipe, the best from the left, the best from the right.
Yeah.
His New Year's message, though, talking about authority, talking about
he's talking
values.
He's talking about being on the left and on the right at the same time, but he's mainly on the right.
What does he mean by civic rearmament?
God knows. I mean, I'm joking. There is a direction that he follows. He's been following for a long time now, and we should pay close attention to it because it's significant. He's been playing with the idea that we could have this military service in the civil form, SNU, Service National Universel. It's like civic duties for the youth, and it's a direction he's been following for many years now.
Gabriel Attal had this.
Gabriel Attal was the initiator. The operational initiator of it, and I think that's partly why he was chosen. And it's like in this alignment of thoughts that the Macron has with the conservative part of the left. It's going technical there, but it's something that we call the Printemps républicain. That has been a think tank that was a little bit leaning on the right, but from the left side, advocating for being, against religion, basically, in the public arena. We want to promote laïcité.
Secular values.
Secular values as a fight. This is not only, pleading for secular values. It's fighting for secular values. And he has been following this path. And education is maybe one of the only meaningful policies that he really built year after year in a coherent direction. And Attal was the maker of all these things. And I think that's something significant. He wants to kind of, the youth needs to be unregimented, instructed, given some directions. Maybe tell to some of them that they need to be in factories. The other ones should be head of companies. We need to, realign the youth with our values. And that speaks a lot. That speaks volume to the core electorate of Emmanuel Macron, which is the senior citizens. And the senior citizens, they vote for Macron like more than 70% in the older categories. So it's very coherent. And that hidden engine in Macron's car is something that we didn't really take enough into account.
More broadly, Gil Mahaley, there was a sense during the 2022 election, coming out of the COVID pandemic, that the French citizens wanted a welfare state that protected them, the feeling that decades of their institutions had been sapped over a long period of time. Is that what Emmanuel Macron is addressing here?
Well, actually, I think it's a good point that Philippe raised, because we are talking about the age of the Prime Minister when we should be talking maybe about the age of the voters. The age of the voters.
That's true.
And they are over 50 and they vote in quite high percentage. And maybe they are not the ones that need this kind of protection. They feel already that they are protected. And we can say that globally, if you're looking about the sociology of Macron's strategy, he is talking a lot about the youth, because part of the things you have to say is that the youth is our future. And together we can achieve everything. But actually what he does is to favor the senior citizens, to have a politics that goes in the way of 50-plus citizens and people who are already retired.
It's a law of numbers because, well, France, like all of its neighbors, is a country that's aging.
Yeah, definitely, but not just. I mean, Emmanuel Macron is in a situation right now that is quite complicated for him after the vote of the immigration bill. We saw that on the 21st of January, over 200 intellectuals, actors, people from the world of culture have been calling for a big demonstration, and this is something that he's facing. So it's a big challenge. Also, a lot of people that were very close to him, like Jean-Marc Borrello, that is the head of Groupe SOS, that was his left wing closest person, actually decided not to agree on this bill neither, and he's not close to the president anymore. So the challenge that he will be facing, even for the elections, because obviously, what kind of project is the Renaissance going to show for the elections? Is it going to be a bit more leftist, or is it going to be a bit more right? It's extremely confusing what's going on. And Macron said something that you probably noticed. He said that he will have a big meeting with the nation in January. And we still don't know what it is. I mean, obviously, it's coming up.
Mireille Clapeau knows. What is that big meeting he's going to have?
Interesting.
Congratulations, Mireille.
I'm afraid I don't know. Just before the COVID, when we had the yellow jackets, there was a great debate in France, and it was very efficient. And we had some citizenship conventions on ecology, on climate, and there was one on a bill of law about end of life euthanasia. And I think that what it means certainly is that we have to organize such debates because today, I regret it because I'm an elected member of parliament, people do not trust us enough, and they want to be more involved in a decision, and they are fond of this citizenship convention. Therefore, I think it's such a process, or maybe it will be with the parties, or I don't know, but he feels, and certainly he is right, because that is very intuitive. He thinks that we have to rebuild a link with the citizens, not only with the senior citizens, but also with the young citizens that are concerned with ecology. And there is a problem of housing also. So we have a lot of reforms to adopt. And we are not able to adopt reforms, to vote for them, if there is not an acceptation, if people don't accept it. And for that, we have to discuss with citizens. So certainly, it's what he calls this appointment with the nation.
All right, the appointment with the nation. Before we go, we're out of time, but Philippe Moreau-Chevrolet, a snap poll by the group Odexa saying 53% approve of that's a landslide in France, 53% approve of Gabriel Attal.
Yeah, sure, but let's wait.
That's day one.
2 months, and let's see what it becomes.
Okay. Many thanks.
We cut heads.
For a week. Léa
quickly.
Champoncel, Philippe Moreau-Chevrolet, Gil Mahaley, and Mireille Clapeau. I want to thank you all for being with us here in the France 24 debate.